Welcome to the 30/30 Health Podcast. The following discussion is for education and entertainment. It is not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first discussing it with your doctor. Here is your host, Guillermo Ruiz.
Hello everyone, my guest today is my friend Dr. Anthony Balduzzi. Dr. Balduzzi is a high-performance weight loss and muscle building expert. He earned his BA from the University of Pennsylvania and his doctorate in Naturopathic Medicine from my school, the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. As a former national champion bodybuilder, Dr. Balduzzi channels his health and fitness knowledge into his personal life and his career. He is the founder of the Fit Father Project, an online health and fitness community that helps men over 40 lose weight and regain vibrant health. Visit my website, 3030strong.com, and if you have a minute, go to iTunes and leave me a review so we can spread this message of health. Thank you and enjoy the show. So super excited here to have as a guest someone that, kind of like mentored me through medical school a little bit during my last 2 years in clinic. Good friend of mine, Dr. Anthony Balduzzi. Dr. Ducey, how are you doing?
Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on 30/30 Strong, my friend.
So, I know your story, and you were such a big influence when I started thinking about starting a website. But why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about you? What's your hero story?
Totally. Great question. So I guess I kind of stumbled into my deep passion for health and fitness through a bit of tragedy. Growing up, I watched my dad, work long hours. He kind of worked himself to the bone, I guess you could say. And he thought he was providing for me, my mom, my little brother. But his body started breaking down. And when I was 7, he was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And I watched his health completely deteriorate. And it taught me a lot of lessons, seeing dad lose his health. And really the foundational one was how important health is. As humans who want to provide and make a difference, it's the bedrock of our ability to do that. So my dad passed away when I was 9 and my little brother was 6. And I really dedicated my life at that point to figuring out how to keep myself healthy. And I was kind of the man of the house very, very early in my life. So I wanted to be strong for my mom and my little brother. And I want to figure out how to also one day, help other dads, guys in my dad's position, stay strong and permanently healthy. So my fitness journey took me lots of different places, studying nutrition. I did some competitive bodybuilding at a pretty high level. And then I found my way to naturopathic medicine, which kind of seemed like it was the glue that stuck together all of the really good lifestyle things that I've been working on and preaching, in terms of nutrition, dietetics, lifestyle, sleep, recovery, natural medicine, all into one kind of big orb that I could really dive deep on and build. So after graduating, I founded the Fit Father Project, which is it's now, I guess, the premier website for guys over 40 who want to lose weight, build muscle, and stay strong and permanently healthy for their families. And we have, programs, blogs, videos, and I'm just here to make a difference in a population, kind of in memory of my dad, because there's a lot of people out there like you and I talked a little bit off call. There's a lot of health and fitness information out there. Geared towards women, geared towards young kids who are trying to get fit. And oftentimes busy guys get left out of the conversation. So I'm looking to bring that into the conversation and help a lot of guys in a big way.
So, that's so interesting. One thing that I found out when I was doing some of my shifts at S&M is that the people that are attracted to coming to this complementary medicine are guys that maybe they were healthy in high school and now they have the dad bod and they think, because they remember high school and how they worked out every day, they did maybe 2 a days and they got really fit. And now they want to do CrossFit 5 times, a week. They want to wake up at 5 in the morning, go train, go to work 40 hours or more, and then come back and expect the same results as when they were 20. How do you convince I think the toughest population that, sleep and resting might be more important than doing those 2 days or those extreme AMRAPs or WODs or CrossFit exercises?
Totally. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think there's there's kind of like two groups of like psychographics of guys that I really support. One is the glory days athlete, the guy who feels that pride and nostalgia and wants to get back, and he wants to age with strength and still be able to maintain a great body and a great life, and really defy what we kind of define as aging in this country, getting weak, getting fat, getting dumb, all these things that don't have to be the case. And then the other group of guy is the guy who kind of feels despondent and complacent because he's tried 15 different diets before and he lost 10 pounds and regained the same 10 pounds back. And just feels like there's I'm over the hill, can't get the weight off now. So might as well just, drink the beer, have the pizza, and not exercise. So there's solutions to both of those approaches. And I guess we're kind of a key point we're bringing up is the psychology of meeting someone where they're at is immensely important. Probably more important than the tactics that you and I could give people in terms of which foods to eat, when to exercise, how to sleep. Wrapping that in a behaviorally sound mindset shift and the right habits is essential for long-term success.
Okay, so you start your day in a very specific way. Okay. Can you tell my listeners what is the number one thing you do whenever you wake up?
So the number one thing I do when I wake up, like first priority, I guess like 2, 3, is hydration. I think a lot of people really make the mistake of not rehydrating first thing in the morning with, I shoot for 32 ounces of fresh, ideally spring water, but reverse osmosis water with some pink Himalayan salt in there. And we got to get the hydration in before we start putting things like coffee and other things in the system. So hydration.
How tall are you and how much do you weigh? Because, 32, and how many ounces do you shoot for in a day?
Yeah, so I'm 6'2", around 205 pounds. I shoot for around, for me, about body weight in ounces divided by 2 plus 32. I like to add a little bit more because I do exercise and I do sweat quite a bit. So I guess you could say, probably around that gallon mark is where I end up falling per day. That's not like a hard and fast rule for everybody, but I make sure to really rehydrate. 32 ounces ideally, but 16 is great first thing in the morning. I also like to move my body. A lot of times we feel stiff in the morning. It's because we haven't been moving, and lymphatic fluid is kind of congested. So I have a little bit of a modified like dude style yoga I do out in the sun to get moving in the morning, get things flowing. And then I do my morning rituals. I have a gratitude practice, some meditation. And one thing I don't do first thing in the morning is I don't eat. I'm a proponent of certain intermittent fasting style diets for behavioral sound principles, as well as the fact that, for me, I like pushing my meals back so I can be very clear and productive in the morning. So I'll focus on water and I'll brew some green tea in the morning while I'm doing my movement, my journaling, and my meditation.
Well, that's very interesting because I went 4 years of school doing intermittent fasting, and I probably can count in one hand how many times I had breakfast during those past 4 years. And it's easier, it's less complicated to just wake up, go to class, sit down, do lectures, and then around 2:00, I have my first meal, and then have my dinner, and then I'm gonna start doing something here pretty soon. I think I'm starting like next Monday. I've been reading a little bit of literature on how exercise at night or meals at night push your circadian rhythm. So then that makes you fall asleep a little bit later. So one thing that I'm going to try to reverse the intermittent fasting, and I'm going to try to have breakfast and then have my 16-hour non-feeding window at night while I'm asleep, and then wake up and do it all over again. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's the cool thing about health, that it's not a one size fits all.
Totally. Really well said. Cool points. Yeah. I mean, I think we're really learning more about, I guess like circadian biology and how important our rhythms are with our hormonal balance and the effect of light and different rhythms and how our food and exercise interplays into that. I think it's a cool concept. I'm interested to see your results and you trying that. I would probably say, I think the best way is because dinner is such like a cornerstone of culture. You go to friends and family, we have dinner, we sit down. For most guys I work with, at the very least, it would make sense to have, an early dinner on that kind of phase shifted framework. Let's say like a 5:36. You can still enjoy that dinner concept, and then you're fasted. Let's say for fasted, quote unquote, but you begin the non-eating period for the next 4 or 5 hours until you go to bed, and then you sleep for 10. Close to where it is. So
because that strategy of skipping breakfast worked so well and has worked so well for 4 years. But again, I'm always trying to look to optimize my health. Are there any specific populations where you would not recommend the intermittent fasting?
Yeah, I definitely. I think people that have problems controlling blood sugar, like diabetics, pre-diabetics, would be the only people, like right off the bat, I would totally give a hard no to fasting. So we know from the research, and we've kind of debunked the myths that fasting will crash your blood sugar, it'll make you exhausted, it'll ruin your metabolism. Like all of those are actually like completely false. But those are all kind of like assumptions of someone who has like a baseline good level of glycemic control. I'm not saying your muscles are going to fall off if you're a fasting pre-diabetic. Hey, maybe, fasting and exercise is a great way to, improve insulin sensitivity. But, if for someone who we know doesn't have super healthy blood sugar control, I'd say no to that. As well as I'd say to young kids in high school who are, who have trouble eating enough quality calories as it is, like, or athletes in particular that have trouble eating enough quality calories, IF might not be the right move for those kind of kids. And in fact, I'm sure a lot of kids actually fall into an IF style framework as is, just by kind of being sloppy and not having a good breakfast and skipping stuff. So those two populations, right off the top of my head, I would say hard nose to.
What about have you encountered anyone with like hormone dysregulation, like thyroid problems? There's a lot of talk. I haven't seen any hard and fast studies, but that intermittent fasting might downregulate some of your hormones.
Yeah, I've seen some of that research too. I think in the context of an overall plan that has the nutrition and the exercise to support thyroid health, a lot of the micronutrient stuff too, I don't think IF is going to ruin your metabolism. At least the fact that we know, we can probably infer that over let's say over a 24-hour fast, your metabolism actually increases. You start doing UCP1 gets upregulated, and we start, we need to maintain core body temperature. So I know that long-term fasting, we extend it out to that 48, 36, et cetera, can slow a thyroid hormone output. But I'm not so sure that a short 16-hour style fast is really going to do too much. That's just my gut intuition. The data will tell. IF is still a relatively new thing in terms of, like, let's say the past 10, 15 years, it's becoming popular enough that we're talking about it on a podcast, right? So we'll see. I think in the context of an overall plan that has healthy thyroid support, it can be okay.
And especially like if you have signs of hypothyroidism, that probably wouldn't be your first step.
Right. Correct. Yeah, totally. I'm with you 100% on that.
So then what are the strategies then? Because one thing that I see a lot of people mess up, okay, when they're trying to do like an IF style system, or trying to incorporate this into their lifestyle, is that IF actually like kind of reduces your calorie intake naturally, because now you're not hungry, now you're skipping one whole meal. But if you're trying to build muscle, you should be eating, the correct amount of calories for your goals. Whether it's, if you want to build muscle, you got to hit those, 3,000 calories, depending on how tall you are. If you're trying to lose weight and you're packing 5,000 calories into 2 meals, that's not going to happen. How do you gauge that? And what formulas do you use in order to help a person, discover what their goals are?
First and foremost, I want to say that, like what you mentioned, like the importance of macronutrients and knowing your general total energy expenditure and having a general guideline of your macro targets is extremely helpful, but not necessary, especially when it comes to losing weight. I think about IF that's great is if we compress our eating window, we do, like, let's say the 16-8 kind of method, and we fast for 16 hours, and we have a meal at, let's say 11:30, 3:30, and 6:30. So we compress the eating window that way. You're naturally going to reduce calories. So it's not as important to necessarily count calories on a weight loss style plan. If it's pure weight loss, you don't need to micromanage your macronutrients, assuming that you just have three meals with, protein, some healthy fats, and potentially some carbs, depending on, what your diet plan setup is. And those meals, roughly, if you're eating healthy foods, are going to be no more than 700 calories. Even if you kind of like had a big portion, you'd have to have like 2 pounds of meat plus like a bunch of like coconut oil to like really throw over 700 calories in any given sitting, right? So that it's like automatic calorie control for weight loss. When it comes to muscle building, it is a lot more essential that you really dial in those macros to make sure that you are eating in a positive energy balance, meaning you're consuming more calories than you need to burn. And the way I do that is I like a lot of the the standard total energy expenditure calculators like a Harris Benedict or a Mifflin St. George. And you can kind of, get a gauge based on your height, weight, activity level of how many calories you roughly burn each day. And then I typically have my clients, and these are guys in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, create a 250 to 500 calorie surplus. And that's the key with muscle building, right? Naturally, there is a maximum rate at which we can put on muscle, and that requires sufficient calories, training, and rest. And if we follow these, quote unquote, bulking style plans where we just eat, haphazardly way more calories than we need. Yes, we've maxed out protein synthesis, but excess calories over a certain point is just going to lead to fat accumulation that you're going to want to strip off afterwards with dieting, and you lose muscle in the process. So it's like on the muscle building front, it's very important that you have dialed in those macros using some of those calculators. And as a starting point, in terms of muscle building macronutrient breakdowns, I like to typically set protein on the higher side than is necessary. So maybe even up to 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound of body weight. A lot higher than than is generally per se. But I think the new research is coming out that, the higher protein diets just generally can, one, be helpful for muscle building. Two, protein is metabolically expensive for our bodies, there's a high thermic effect of protein, and we eat more, we have to burn more. So it's nice to keep you eating a lot of food on the diet. And then I typically, once we know the total energy expenditure, I'll then set carbs and fats, depending on the person's palate preferences. Some people like to eat slightly higher fat. Some people like to eat slightly higher carbs. So we can adjust those macros, and as long as we hit the general calorie target, we're in good shape. Typically, I like to propose a more moderate approach to a balanced approach, you could say, to macronutrient composition. So a diet might end up looking like 25 to 30% protein, 30% fat, and let's just say 40% carbs. So very nothing is restricted, because we know to build muscle optimally, you do need the right kind of carbs to fill glycogen stores. And we know insulin also is a direct trigger of protein synthesis itself. At the same time, we want a lot of good healthy fats in there to support hormone production, stable energy levels, and just generally hitting our calorie targets. So at the risk of going on a tangent, I'll stop there. But hopefully that's helpful on the muscle building front. And I know this, I will say, because I was a national champion bodybuilder and a competitive bodybuilder for about 10 years. And I personally put 100 pounds of lean mass on my body from high school to my mid-20s. And it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of patience, but it's, good nutrition's, really the foundation of both fat loss and muscle building.
When you're talking about at the macro level, so it's very, very balanced macro. But then for your patients or your clients, do you have any restrictions when it comes to, what I'm trying to ask you is this: what do you think about if it fits your macros?
Yeah. And no, I think if it fits your macros is like a reaction. It's a reaction movement to a very restrictive dieting culture that we had for 10 years.
Or we still have.
Yeah, I guess we still have. I mean, if it fits your macros is kind of like the full swing in the other direction, saying, look, we just learned that macros are like a main driver of body composition. And there is a big difference between body composition and health. Like, let's draw that in the line right now. There are plenty of people who have visually pretty impressive body compositions that have inflamed guts, that have all sorts of food reactions, that have just like, like you can get ripped eating Pop Tarts and Oreos and protein powder as long as you hit your macros. But those foods cause a lot of other problems. We're talking about short-term ripped, the kind of inflammation that, crap foods cause, the glycation end products that these things can cause as well, long-term will have, a detriment. So if you fit your macros, as a movement did a good job of saying, hey, look, we can chill out, guys. There can be some flexibility to your dieting. You don't have to you can have that piece of pizza that you absolutely love in moderation, and you can still have a maintain amazing physique. But that said, any diet that is not made up of primarily unprocessed foods is not playing the long game. And it will, I will say this with full confidence, it will hurt your health in the long run. And if it fits your macros, people, can definitely achieve body composition goals at the expense of, I guarantee having Oreos and Pop-Tarts and protein powder, your energy levels are just all over the place. You're putting a bunch of crap in your body that, long-term is going to harm you. So if it fits your macros, good in terms of they brought awareness to the flexible dieting movement that we're kind of getting more moderate, but they swung really far in one direction.
Well, like you said, you're going to have different people that are going to prefer a different macronutrient composition. Like, for example, I have no sweet tooth. Like I can go to a party and not touch cupcake or, no interest in that. But come around, Thanksgiving, I'm the kind of guy that's going to go back and have turkey 4 or 5 times during that same meal. So that's where you can actually customize and actually implement a plan that you're going to be more easily and naturally you're going to adhere to it.
Totally. And I think you bring up probably the biggest point that I love to talk about is the only diet that works is the diet you can stick to. And I mean diet not as in terms of weight loss diet, but any like a sustainable eating approach.
And lifestyle.
So you have to take it. Yeah, right. Lifestyle. So you have to take an inventory of your preferences, and you have to build your diet around your preferences, not the other way around. The other way around is going to create, something that's just not behaviorally sound for you. It's essential. And I think that regardless of, that's why we know that there are incredibly healthy people that eat incredibly high fat diets. Let's say like an 80-10-10 kind of like ketogenic-ish approach where it's 80% fat, 10 carbs, 10 protein. There are people that can be very healthy like that, as well as there are people on the other side using an 80-10-10 carbohydrate, mostly 80% carbs kind of diet. So a lot of different diets work. We got to find the one that fits our food preferences the best. We want to, regardless of which diet macronutrient composition we choose, it's going to be based on whole unprocessed foods. And there are certain diets that are also absolutely tailored to certain kind of health and metabolic conditions that, they're tools. All these things are tools. But what I do with the Fit Father Project is I'm so keen on helping guys develop a nutrition plan that is so simple and sustainable. We have a product called the Fit Father No Think Meal Plan. We want to make this like brainlessly easy for guys to win long term. And I think that's where the discussion nutrition needs to shift. Less from like this superfood and that superfood and that sexy stuff to like the unsexy stuff of like how do we create habits and behaviors that are going to be psychologically sustainable.
That's so important, the sustainability of habits, because I can give anyone a beautiful meal plan or a beautiful workout plan, but like for example, if you are trying to ask someone that has morning meetings at restaurants to intermittent fast, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. What is the hardest habit for you to break?
The hardest habit for me to break. So you want a bad habit?
Yeah, like one bad habit that you had that, took you forever. Like I'll give you an example. The last unhealthy, quote unquote thing that I stopped doing was drinking Diet Coke. It was just so difficult.
Yeah, I want to give you maybe a psychology hard habit to break. because I think, in relation to talk about diets, we talk about like getting rid of excess, right? And I think like psychologically, I found at least a couple years ago that social media in itself was a very addicting habit for me to break. Like I would find myself mindlessly checking Facebook or Instagram, almost like when I was even working and just thinking about things, like you start typing in like social media sites or kind of compulsively. And these things are designed to be addictive. We're social creatures looking for, validation and making sure we fit in tribe. Like these are things that are still hardwired into our psychology, and social media preys on that. So for me, I found that, using social media as a source of validation and kind of the compulsory behavior around that was a tough habit to break. And ways that I did that and developed a much healthier, relationship with social media was threefold. First, uninstall the apps on my phone. And if I absolutely need them, they're so easy to download in the App Store. You can download Facebook or Instagram, wherever you need in, 60 seconds. But just not having it there, creates a little bit of a space where between stimulus and response, you have a choice where you don't have to you don't have it to compulsively click on those app icons. Another thing is I used when I'm doing productivity work blocks, I'll use like Freedom or any kind of app that kind of blocks social media sites for a while, which is hugely beneficial. I think it's good to booby trap our environments with technology and setups that are going to support our productivity. And having focused block time where it's not just like, I'm not saying like no social media, but if you were to batch that into like, okay, these 30 minutes to an hour, I'm going to spend like responding to my friends and family and people I love. But it's not something that just gets dripped throughout your day as a distraction. It becomes an activity in itself. And the third thing that was extremely important was actually, shifting my focus to having a greater impact in the world far beyond the quote unquote personal brands that we're all building on Facebook. Like my work with the Fit Father Project and pouring a lot of my energy into that was hugely beneficial because in a way, these days, social media has empowered every single person on the planet to become more or less their own brand. And we're always kind of like publishing stuff to support this persona. And when you have a place where you can publish and still create, because humans, I believe we have this generative creative force and we want to put stuff out to add value to the world. When you have an outlet that's, bigger than yourself and different, it can help develop a healthier relationship where it's not about social validation tied to your brand, but like the content you're creating for 30/30 is amazing. And I guarantee you spend a lot more time thinking about these kind of things and interviews and what you want to discuss than, other people in very similar shoes to you, classmates, colleagues who, probably have a much different relationship because they don't have a platform like you.
Oh, and it's funny that you say the social media, I don't know if you read The Hungry Brain by Stephen Guyenet, and he talks about dopamine and how food can be so addictive, but social media is addictive, that every single reminder, every single alert, so that's one thing that I did on my social media. I took all the alerts out. I keep my phone on silent with no vibration.
Yeah.
So like,
beautiful.
yeah, and I'm far from not being completely tied to my phone. It's like that thing is just like so personal to me, and I keep it around me a lot. But I'm much better than I was like 4 years ago or 3 years ago. And just those two things, just taking notifications out and taking the vibration and sounds, it like gave me a level of freedom from being attached to that thing. Which, they're not going anywhere, and I'm not, saying that no one should have a phone. I'm a big fan of technology, but it really is, a weight that you carry. Quick question for you. Do you see a lot of people that were not athletes? Like I was a nerd when I was in school. I played NES and was not interested in lifting weights or playing sports. And now that I'm getting older, now I have this, I lift weights and I care about my nutrition, and it came to me through science. How can we motivate those people that maybe have no interest? They don't realize the importance of health. How can we get those guys to start, considering their health as an asset?
I think that the way we do it with the Fit Father Project is we publish content like articles and videos that begin to have that cognitive reframe conversation with guys that they maybe have never heard before. Like one very powerful conversation we have with guys who are not intrinsically motivated to necessarily eat or exercise healthier. They're like cool with what they're at. Is we have what we call at the Fit Project our money talk. We basically talk to the guys and say, hey, look, how much is an hour of your time worth? I don't know, like, what is it? Depends on your line of work, anywhere from 10, 20, 200, $2,000 an hour for some guys. And then we basically make the point that, like, look, not taking care of your nutrition, your exercise is probably draining a good solid, let's say 2 hours of truly productive, energized, focused work per day. And then how much is that costing you per week, per month, per year? And overall, that can add up to astronomical figures. For some guys, that could be, hundreds of thousands of dollars, left on the table, money to provide for their families, and money that could really help them, live out their legacy and build their dreams, because they're not taking care of this vehicle. The point is not about the money. The point is to find a cognitive lever that works for any individual person. So money is very motivating for a lot of men who have that providing instinct. They want to gather the resources to take care of their families. That's one way to talk about it. But another thing is sharing story. I share the story of my dad all the time, and it's the reason I founded the Fit Father Project. And I think my story has served as a wake up call for thousands of guys. I should say my dad's story and just what can happen when you don't take care of your health. Because a lot of these things, a lot of these lifestyle based diseases like obesity, prediabetes, diabetes, heart disease, they're kind of like the silent killers where you're out of shape, but you don't really know you're out of shape until you have that first chest pain or the first MI. So I think like having a story that really can touch people is a big way, as well as reframing fitness, around fatherhood is a big thing that we do here at the Fit Father Project. It's not about the six pack. It's about what you can do to be what we call a fit father, someone who is physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually strong to take care of their families. And the body just happens to be the bedrock of a lot of this change. When your body's healthier, your brain sits in this neurochemical soup that our bodies help generate. Everything starts to shift with your mindset, your outlook, your thinking, when we improve the condition of the physical body itself. And one thing that we do with all of our programs that is also beneficial is we have guys write down a 30-day change mission statement. So before they, even get information on their meal plan or their workouts, they create a mission statement for themselves that they write and they print out to serve as a visual cue. And in the process of designing their mission statement, we walk them through some very deep and powerful reflective exercises on what their current behaviors around health and fitness, eating and exercise are costing them in every area of their life, physically, financially, spiritually, relationally. And so we kind of start to take all angles to really get leverage over our brains. And this is working with a man through this. Like, I feel like guys want to be motivated. They just don't feel motivated. So if we can really go through a deep reflective process to understand the costs of our current habits, our brains are immensely motivated by moving away from pain towards pleasure. We have this kind of hardwired survival mechanism in us. So if we can magnify the pain of where we're currently at, and also, magnify the pleasure of, the vivid vision of what we want to create with our bodies and our health, and make that really tangible and somatic through visualization, we can really get levers over our emotional brain, that limbic system that's going to ultimately help initiate and sustain all the cognitive habits that we know we should be doing. Does that make sense?
Totally, because, we have it in our culture that we live that working hard is it. And that's the end goal to, work your hands to the bone. And having some disregard for your own health is almost applauded, like the self-sacrifice. And if you were to ask your significant other, they I assure you that they want to spend time with you more than they want to have your money. And that's so important to understand, especially as a guy, because we are so conditioned to be to not cry, to not meditate, to not take care of ourselves, that when we start reframing these things and we start understanding that the reason you're doing all of this, it's not for you, it's actually for your kids, it's actually for your spouse. Now that has a different effect, and now you know that you're doing these things, and now you have a different motivator to follow through with these things.
Really well said. Yeah, totally. It's that reframe. And that's the Fit Father Project conversation. We don't sell fitness programs, we sell family. We sell like a new lease on a sustainable approach to being around to enjoy your life and your kids, your spouse, etc.
So who's your prototypical client, or who is the person that comes in and finds you and asks for your help?
Yeah, 45-year-old busy male working 55, 65, 75 hours, has tried many diets before, is about 45, 50 pounds overweight, has had conversations with his primary care physician that, he needs to lose the weight to be healthier and decrease the blood pressure. And he wants to get off the medications, and deep down, he wants to, lose the weight. He's tried and failed. He's been burned so many times with promises of different plans that would work, that there's a level of, complacency and that they don't know that he can do it. That's the man that I help turn things around for.
Where do you think the conventional healthcare system, or I don't want to lay blame on anyone and on anything, because it's just a cluster of things that happen. But where do you think the biggest problem, the number one thing that you want to change about healthcare that failed your dad?
Well, I think that the answer there would be that prevention-centric healthcare, like prevention is the best cure. I don't know if it was Ben Franklin who said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, but that's a core principle of naturopathic medicine that I absolutely love. So fixing problems before they're problems is one thing that was huge in my dad's life. But I think for a guy who already feels like they're at a tipping point where they know their health slipped, I think that having information resources like 3030 or the Fit Father Project that can inspire and show real case studies that it's possible can ignite new hope that, hey, there are tailored solutions specifically for where you're at, and you don't have to try cookie cutter stuff that's going to fail you again.
And one of the biggest problems is like the bastardization of words, and how we make a meaning that fits with our outlooks. Like, for example, prevention to you and me, the type of prevention that the Fit Father Project is doing is going to be very different than the type of prevention that a doctor that's seeing 50 patients a day is doing. For example, prevention to me is not saying, oh, your cholesterol is going up, here's your statin to prevent a heart attack. Can you talk a little bit about that, the difference in the two types of prevention?
Yeah, absolutely. The statin conversation is like literally the perfect example. There's a short-term Band-Aid prevention that is typically pharmaceutically driven, where, again, the idea is not to badmouth any, good, hardworking doctors that are trying to do the best they can working in the current medical model we have. But, by all means, true prevention, like the good kind that we're talking about, addresses the root cause of the issue. The other prevention, quote unquote prevention, giving a statin drug for high cholesterol, giving 4 or 5 different blood pressure medications for something that could be reduced with weight loss, is a very surface level kind of Band-Aid fix. Yes, may it prevent a some kind of immediate problem. Could taking blood pressure medications prevent a stroke within the next 2 months? Absolutely, 100% could. Over the long haul, however, that surface level prevention snowballs into a monster of its own. That's where people kind of come into doctors' offices being like, how am I on 12 prescriptions? Like, how did this happen? That was a series of quote unquote preventions that led to this totally different monster. So I think people also need to, and we are as a culture, really understand the true power of lifestyle-based medicine. I'm talking about dietary changes and exercise, from being huge needle movers in terms of all these stuff that we're concerned about. For example, I have a case study of a patient client of mine who's managed for 20 years by his heart doc, his cardiologist, who had him on Lipitor, a series of different blood pressure medications. Went through some work with me at the Fit Father Project. We dropped his cholesterol by 100 points in about 5 weeks. He got taken off pretty much all of his medications, less two, in about a third of a year, from just doing diet and exercise stuff. It really is powerful. And I think people we need more case studies like that for people to say, wow, this will move the needle. I'm willing to give this a shot.
Hey, if you want to write that up, and we can submit it to the Journal of Evolutionary Medicine, and have it published, because this is the type of stuff that all this N=1, and people roll their eyes. Oh, it's just one case. What happens when you apply this to populations? Well, if we concentrate all these one-offs, and we can create this movement where we can use social media and internet and things that are thought to be unhealthy to motivate people to change their lifestyle, and then have it supported by science, maybe people will start funding a double-blind placebo-controlled trial in order to start changing those habits, or that needle.
That's a very natural progression, and more case studies, more good docs, and really great people on the ground, changing lives. It's all moving everything in the right direction, for sure.
So where can people find you? And are you doing any speaking engagements or anything anywhere where people can go and talk to you or ask you questions?
Yeah, totally. Well, first off, the main place to connect with what I'm doing and what we talked about today is at fitfatherproject.com. It's just spelled exactly as FIT, fatherproject.com. And on the site is kind of like the compilation of me and my team's work with all the free articles, videos, workouts, and full programs if anyone wants to get started with what we're doing. And of course, like hundreds of success stories on there too, because we have about 100 N=1 case studies of guys who've changed their lives. So N=100. Yeah, so that's the main place. And I do quite a bit of speaking, and I'll be speaking at several events this year. The most upcoming one will be at Camp Maverick, which is a elite summer camp for entrepreneurs and business owners, which is pretty exciting. I also like to, in addition to Fit Father stuff, I like the high performance side of health. People now call it biohacking these days, but the very performance oriented side of things. And I do a lot of talks to busy entrepreneurs as well. So I'll be doing that at Camp Maverick. I'll be speaking at an agency owners event called You Gurus in Denver, and potentially a couple others as well. Underground Seminar in Denver as well, which is an entrepreneurs conference. So if you're a business owner out there, definitely check out Underground or You Gurus. These are fantastic events, and it's business focused, but we're doing some cool things by bringing in some high performance healthcare into these seminars, because hard charging game changers and people who are building platforms often neglect their health very frequently, unless they're actually teaching health for a living. So I'm here to help.
Yeah, there's a couple of entrepreneurs out there that do meditation solely to gain an advantage against their competitors. They really don't care about the science. They just know that the science is solid, that doing meditation helps you be more focused and be more productive. So they take an hour of their time to meditate just for the benefits of it. Hey, however we can make people take up that habit, it doesn't matter. But meditation
Totally
works.
Yeah, flat out works. Totally. Yeah. And that's to the point of finding those motivational levers that are as unique to us as the kind of diet we want to follow.
Yeah. And that's amazing. So Anthony, Dr. Balduzzi, I'm used to calling you Anthony, man. Dr. Balduzzi, so thank you so much for this this conversation. I'm really excited, that you're in this town and really help each other and continue moving this healthy movement that I don't even know what it's called anymore. I just want it to be health, and I want to help as many people as possible. Whether you're paleo, keto, vegan, it doesn't matter. Find someone that speaks to you and change those bad habits and turn them better and get healthy for you, for your family, for the country, for everyone.
Well said, my friend.
Well, I'll be talking to you soon, and thank you for this interview, man.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.